2026 is right around the corner, and there are some pretty exciting books coming out next year. A few really anticipated books for me that I'm quite excited about. Of course, there are going to be some books that we've been anticipating for decades that probably won't come out. But that's not why we're here. We're here to talk about some of the most anticipated actual confirmed releases of 2026. So let's just get this out of the way right at the beginning. We're probably not going to see Doors of Stone, Winds of Winter, Thorn of Emberlane, as much as I would like to. I still maintain a sliver of hope for each of those series, but I'm also realistic, and I'm not expecting them. I don't expect those at any time, so that if and when any of those books ever do come out, wonderful. I'll be very excited. But it's probably not going to be this year, and if it is, then I'll make a video about it. So for now, let's shift away from those and talk about actual releases that we know are coming, because there's quite a few good ones, as I mentioned in the intro. So first up, let's start with fantasy. I'll go through a bunch of the different fantasy books that I'm looking forward to, and then we'll go through sci-fi. And I'll clarify, there's a couple that are very anticipated reads that I plan to try and read next year. So it's like TBR level anticipation. And then there are some books that are either debut books or books from authors I'm interested in, but I don't know if it'll be anything I get to next year, but it's still on my radar and I'm still interested. I still want to highlight those as well. I just remembered two more potential releases that we don't have confirmed that I'm just going to real quick get out of the way. Lord of Demons by Evan Winter, the third book in the Burning series. This one, I feel like there's a decent chance maybe it comes out by the end of the year, 2026. Not confirmed yet. It's been a while since we got book 2. I think it's been like 6 years or so, something like that. So hopefully we see that soon, but not confirmed. The other big one is Red God by Pierce Brown, the final book in the Red Rising series. A lot of people are anticipating this. This one I think we have a pretty good chance of getting. Pierce Brown he hasn't fully confirmed it, but he seems to continue to imply that it's going to come out sometime in 2026. I think it was originally supposed to come out by the end of this year, and it was pushed to next year. That doesn't mean it couldn't get pushed again. We've all been burned before, but Pierce Brown has been like at events recently, kind of hyping up the book a little and talking about it. So it feels like there's a pretty good possibility that Red God will actually be released by the end of next year. And that's exciting. I didn't love the first Red Rising. Books 2 and 3 were a lot more fun. I enjoyed those. Book 4 and 5 were cool, but a little bit of a slog at times. Like, I like Red Rising. I'm not the diehard fan some people are for it. I think it has its issues, but it's a pretty fun space opera by and large. I do enjoy it. And I'm excited to see what he does with the conclusion. Like, I think he does tend to go some pretty dark places with the series. I still need to read Lightbringer. I've read up through Dark Age. I haven't read Lightbringer yet. So my plan is a couple months before Red God is released to maybe do a reread, or at the very least read Lightbringer, and then after, just go straight into Red God from there. So hopefully we see that by the end of the year. All right, the first fantasy book that I'm super excited about comes out January 12th, I think. That is the new Dresden Files novel, 12 Months. This comes out in 1 month, but it's called 12 Months. Not to get that confused. I love the Dresden Files. It's so good. It's one of my favorite series. Harry Dresden is just such a great character, and there are so many incredible side characters. The world building's awesome. The plot is amazing. It's one of those series that sneaks up on you too. Like, I liked the first couple of Dresden books. They were fun from the start for me, but they were nothing groundbreaking. But you get 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 books in, and all of a sudden it becomes one of the most epic and emotional series you've ever read. So I'm very excited. I've been reading Dresden for over a decade now, and I'm very ready for the next book. It's been, 4 years? 3 or 4 years, maybe more, since we got Battleground. Peace Talks and Battleground were the last 2 releases. So I'm excited about this. It kind of felt like he is figuring out how to get into this final giant arc of the series. And he's maybe actually doing that now. And based on the events of the last book, I'm really curious to see what happens. That's all I'll say. But yeah, Dresden Files, January 12th. So the first big release of the year is going to be one of my favorites. I can't wait. Quick correction, I just looked it up. It's actually January 20th that Dresden comes out, not the 12th. On March 17th, we have I believe this is a debut from A.S. Tamaki. This is The Book of Fallen Leaves. And I don't know much about this, to be honest. I don't even have a plot summary for you. You can go look it up. I mean, look at the cover. That's so cool. It's like fantasy, samurai fantasy type vibes. That's kind of enough to sell me, to be honest. A good cover and the promise of some cool samurai stuff. I still need to get to Shogun. I think I'm going to like Shogun, but I haven't gotten around to it. I've been playing Ghost of Yote recently, which is a video game, samurai video game, and so that kind of has me a little bit in the mood for something like this. So I'm excited. This looks like something fun to try out. On March 31st, we get a release from another one of my recent favorite fantasy authors, Richard Swan. Richard Swan wrote the Empire of the Wolf trilogy, which I read this year, and I adore it. That's phenomenal. I think it's a little underrated. You should go read it. And he has a newer fantasy series set in the same world called The Great Silence. The first book being Grave Empire, which came out 1 or 2 years ago, and I haven't gotten to that one yet. I'll be reading that early next year. I'm excited about it. But in March, we're going to get the second book in this series, which is called Steel Gods. This is so cool. The cover of the first book, like you can just see how cool it is. There was a special edition version of this cover that has like an armored shark. So cool. I'm so glad we're getting more sharks in fantasy. I've been saying for decades that we need more sharks in fantasy. In April, we should be getting the next R.F. Kuang book, which is called Taipei Story. Actually, I don't think this might not be fantasy. This might just be straight up literary fiction. So yeah, I'll have to double check that, but pretty sure this is actually literary fiction. That being said, I like R.F. Kuang's work. She's not my favorite of all time. I think she's very talented in some ways. She's kind of a divisive author, and her plots sometimes work for me, sometimes don't. Her character work sometimes works for me, sometimes doesn't. She tends to do a good job analyzing various themes in her work, which I find interesting to degrees. And I also feel like her world building. Sometimes I like her world building, sometimes not so much. She's kind of hit or miss for me, but overall I think she's talented, and I'm always intrigued by whatever she's writing. So Taipei Story is definitely something that has my attention. I don't think we have an exact date for this, but I think she said it was going to be in April, so we'll see. On May 19th, we get The Tapestry of Fate by Shannon Chakraborty. This is the sequel to The Adventures of Amina El-Sarafi, which I have not read. I like the cover of it, and I'm interested because I think it's like nautical pirate fantasy, which I do like, but I have to be in the right mood for it. And I feel like I can only read one pirate fantasy per year, roughly. And I read the Live Ship Traders series earlier this year, which was amazing. That being said, I'm interested. The covers are so beautiful, and I've heard great things about Chakraborty's work in general. So maybe next year, I don't know for sure if I'll get to this next year, but I would like to try Amina El-Sarafi and then this new book, Tapestry of Fate. On June 9th, another one I'm super excited about, A Trade of Blood by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is the third book in the Shadow of the Leviathan. I'm not sure, like, the first book in this series was called The Shadow of the Leviathan, and then the second book is just called an Anna and Din mystery novel, or an Anna and Din mystery. And I think that's what the third one is. So I'm not sure if both of the series names are true, or if they're switching it. Regardless, The Tainted Cup was a ton of fun. It is very much like a Sherlock Holmes style mystery set in a really interesting dark fantasy world with an eccentric but brilliant detective named Anna Delabra and her assistant Din, who's kind of her on the ground eyes and ears going and doing a lot of the kind of the Watson style work. And then she's being brilliant and helping solve these cases. Crazy magic systems, political intrigue, cool world setting. Like there's these giant leviathans that come out of the ocean and destroy things, so they have these big walls up. I really liked book 1. Book 2 came out, man, did that come out last year or this year? I don't even remember anymore. Book 2 I think it was this year. I think book 2 is relatively recent. I haven't read it yet, and I need to get to that because I love that book and I enjoy Robert Jackson Bennett's work in general. So I'll be getting to that. And book 3, very excited. I'm excited that those are continuing. I kind of like the idea of this serialized mystery books in a dark fantasy world, because I like mysteries, but I tend to like fantasy more, and so this is a good way for me to feel like I'm getting my regular mystery fix in a cool fantasy world. On June 16th, we get Songs of the Dead by Peter Arulian and Brandon Sanderson. I've never read anything by Peter Arulian. He had another series maybe a decade ago that I don't think it did super well. I don't know how good it was. Like, it looked cool. I just never got around to it. But I don't know if that series was ever finished. But I guess Peter Arulian's friends with Brandon Sanderson, and they've been working on an idea that is like a music-based magic system. I think this is like a heavy metal story that like raises the dead or something like that. A guy works at a pizza shop, maybe. I feel like I'm piecing together little bits of things I've remembered from like interviews Brandon Sanderson has done over the years, but this sounds cool. The idea is intriguing, and it seems like Peter Arulian, I believe he is a musician as well as a writer, so having a musician writing a music-based magic system makes sense. And Brandon Sanderson has enough to write, to be honest, so I'm glad if Sanderson has more ideas he wants written, I'm glad he's kind of like giving those to other people in a way, because I love you, Sanderson, but I feel like One of my issues with his more recent works is that he's too rushed. Like, he's trying to produce so much so quickly that the editing process isn't doing enough of what it needs to do. And I don't know. I feel like his works are better with a little bit more time, in the oven. So I'm kind of glad that this is not a Sanderson book exactly, even if Sanderson is kind of attached. One of the debut novels that I'm most intrigued by next year is The Demon Star by Jesse Aragon. This, first of all, the cover is super cool. And something I didn't realize, this was on my radar when I saw the cover a little while ago, but Patrick Leo did a video of his most anticipated books, and this was one of his as well. And he noticed that the cover artist for this book is the cover artist who did the Sun Eater series, which, if you haven't seen some of my previous videos, I've talked about it. Like, I'm reading Sun Eater now, and I love Sun Eater. It's so fun. But I really love the artwork on Sun Eater too. I feel like the artist captures like this epic, dark fantasy feel that is in Sun Eater, and it seems like he's capturing that with this too. Like, this is one of those books that I would buy based on the cover. The title too. The Demon Star is a cool title, but the cover, beautiful. I'm sold. The concept, I think, is that this is a world that used to have gods, and now there are these giant parasitic demons that live in like the chasms or canyons of this world. That's about all I know, and to be honest, that's enough. And the final fantasy book on my radar for next year is on October 6th, we get the new Tad Williams book, The Splintered Sun, which is another novel set in his Austin Ard world, which I'm super excited about. I read Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn a couple of years ago, and I love it. It's such a good series. I've been meaning to continue. After Austin Ard, he had another series. I'm forgetting the name of the overall series, but I think it ended with The Navigator's Children. It's like a 4-book series or something. So I need to keep going, but I loved Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. I love Tad Williams' prose. He is one of those writers that he can just craft a sentence and pull you into the story. His writing's beautiful, so I know I'm going to enjoy whatever else he's done. So I will read the next series at some point, and I don't know if I'm going to get to The Splintered Sun next year. Probably not, because there's quite a few Tad Williams books in between that and where I'm at in the series, and they're all really big. So I don't know how soon I'll get to it, but Tad Williams is one of those authors that I do plan to make my way through all of his books at some point. All right, let's move on to sci-fi releases that are on my radar for 2026, starting with an Alastair Reynolds book that's coming on, I think it's January 13th. Alastair Reynolds is fairly popular, though I haven't read any of his books yet. He's started to kind of crop up in my recommendations more and more, and I really want to get to House of Suns soon. I think that's where I'm going to start with his work. But he has a new book called Halcyon Years coming out in January, and this seems like a sci-fi noir detective type novel. I like a good noir detective novel occasionally, especially with sci-fi elements. Like, noir and sci-fi go so well together. And from everything I'm hearing, Alastair Reynolds is just a great author, and so a really good author writing a sci-fi noir detective story sounds cool. Again, I think I'm going to start with House of Suns. I'll probably read that early next year, but maybe I'll get to this one too. This looks cool. On February 3rd, we get The Forest at the Edge of Time by Jasmine Kirkbride. I don't know a ton about this. I think this is a debut novel, but the premise and the cover both caught my attention. Essentially, due to some ecological disaster, they need to send a couple of scientists through time to try and solve it. And each of these scientists are sent to different worlds and I think different points in time to try and figure out what's going on with humanity's future. And they start to like encounter each other in their dreams somehow. I don't fully know. This sounds wild, but I'm in for it. A really good time travel story can be mind-bending and awesome if done well. This sounds super cool. So I'm kind of excited for this one. Near the end of February, on February 24th, we get After the Fall by Edward Ashton. This is another premise that really has caught my attention. It's about humanity has been taken over by another race of aliens some point in the future, and humans have become essentially domesticated pets. And so we follow a particular human who all his life has been trained to be a good, obedient human pet to this other species. And I don't know where the story is going to go from there. I think this is supposed to be somewhat comedic, which is a bit of a yellow flag. I think comedic novels are so hit or miss. But when they're good, they're good. And the concept sounds like it could inherently have a lot of humor baked into it. And it also just sounds interesting. Like, what if humans were actually legitimately just pets? I'm fascinated by that idea. So this one, I'm keeping an eye on this one for sure. I forgot to mention, this is from the author of Mickey 7, which is a fairly popular book. I think there was a movie of it too. I haven't read the book or watched the movie, so I don't really know. But it sounds like this is an author who has had some success. So We'll see. On April 7th, we get The Subtle Art of Folding Space by John Chu. This is a sci-fi book following a woman whose life is kind of falling apart. Her mom's in a coma. She has her own problems. And then apparently she's involved in this skunkworks machinery that it like somehow is keeping the universe in order. So I don't know if this is like some kind of cosmic type thing or if this is in the future and they have actual technology that is helping keep physics in place. I don't exactly know. But what happens is she finds a device that is helping keep her mother's coma at bay, but using it causes there to be fluctuations and problems with the stability of physics in the universe. So that sounds like it could be kind of fun. Also in April, we get First Mage on the Moon by Cameron Johnson. This is kind of a sci-fi fantasy mashup, but it's apparently there are wizards and they have their own space race to get to the moon. That's about all I know about it. That sounds like it could be a wild time, and I love wizards and space travel. That seems like a fun pairing, and I'm curious to see how sci-fi that leans or how fantasy that leans. I can't tell if the tone is going to be really goofy or what. So this isn't like a shoo-in for something I absolutely will read next year, but I am going to be keeping my eye on it. On April 28th, we get Ode to the Half-Broken by Suzanne Palmer. This is supposed to be good for fans of like Becky Chambers and her Monk and Robot series, which I enjoyed but didn't love. Like there's not quite enough going on for me, but the vibes were really nice. This is apparently like a post-apocalyptic world. The world nearly ended, and now we're following like a security robot in the overgrown botanical gardens of New York, and it befriends like a cyborg dog. And I think it's kind of one of those feel-good books, which those are hit or miss. Like I like feel good, but sometimes the plot isn't quite enough. Like I do like there to be stakes usually, but I'm interested in this one. So maybe this will be a nice cozy read. One of my most anticipated reads of next year is The Last Contract of Isako, which will be out on May 5th. This is by Fonda Lee, author of the Greenbone Saga. I love the Greenbone Saga. I think this is a standalone, but it's like a sci-fi cyberpunk. Isako is like a sci-fi samurai going to do like some kind of hit job. It's like her last contract. I don't need to know more. That's about all I know about it, but the cover's cool and it's Fonda Lee and the setting, like, come on, cyberpunk samurai. Yeah. On May 5th, we get Love Galaxy by Sierra Branham. I'm not a big romance reader, but this sounds funny. It's sort of a sci-fi romantic comedy, I think, about a woman who lives on a dead-end planet in the galaxy with no prospects, but she manages to get the chance to go on an intergalactic dating show where the winner gets to marry like the prince or the emperor's son, something like that. That sounds kind of fun. Like I don't watch a lot of reality TV, but the idea of intergalactic reality TV for some reason kind of calls out to me. I feel like that could be a good time. So we'll see. On June 30th, we get Dead But Dreaming of Electric Sheep by Paul Tremblay. The title clearly an allusion to Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? And Paul Tremblay is known as a horror author. I've read 2 of his books, and I like but don't love his work so far. But he does have a way of getting under your skin with his concept, so I'm very curious. The idea of a horror android techno nightmare sounds cool. That's kind of what I've heard this pitched as. I don't know much more beyond it other than that, but I love Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and Tremblay has had some good books, so I'll definitely be checking this out. And then finally, on August 4th, The Infinite State by Richard Swan. I mentioned earlier in this video, Richard Swan wrote Grave Empire. He wrote Empire of the Wolf, which is one of my favorite fantasy series that I read this year. He is definitely an auto-buy author for me at this point. I'm curious to see how his sci-fi feels. I mean, he's great, so I'm sure it'll be cool. I don't remember what it's about, but I don't really need to. It's Richard Swan. So The Infinite State is definitely something I'll be looking into. I think Richard Swan is one of those up-and-coming talents in the industry for sure. So that's it. Those are the books that I'm most anticipating for 2026 between fantasy and sci-fi. Let me know, are you excited about any of these? Are there any books that I didn't talk about that you're particularly excited about? Let me know in the comments. But yeah, like and subscribe because I plan to read some of these and make reviews. And if you want to know what I think about them, this is the place for it. Thanks for watching.